Al Siebert.
There you go, fella.
Darn good to meet you, my friend. How are you doing?
Born and raised in beautiful Warren County, Virginia. A great place to grow up. Always felt the need to serve or be a part of something bigger. I was with Warren County for 15 years.
Is that right?
Frederick County for 9, and then City of Winchester for 8, and now I'm here. My life of service began at 15 years old, and I think what drove me was my mother would always take care of elderly people in our area, and I mean, not for a job, she just did it. We was always either in somebody's garden helping them, we was always at somebody's house helping them get things squared away that they couldn't do. We was always making meals for people. I found that being helpful to others really sparked something inside of my heart. It basically kind of being bred into me to help others and think of others before you think of yourself. So I got into the fire department and really enjoyed the volunteer aspect. And with that, of course, you get to see a lot of police officers. Really became drawn more towards what they did. When I turned 18, I went to the sheriff's office and applied. The major kind of chuckled and said, "You're a bit too young." And so I came back on my 19th birthday and did the same thing, and then again on my 20th birthday. And then on my 20th birthday, shortly after that, the sheriff called me and actually was hired on November 2nd of 1989. I began my career as a law enforcement officer in the beautiful county of Warren.
Man, I was in Warren, working as a deputy.
I'd always wanted to get into undercover work. I always thought that was kind of the pinnacle of law enforcement.
I was, of course, I used to buy drugs undercover down Shandor all the time.
I'd like to tell you about 2 cases. The first case was a homicide.
It was a drive-by shooting that left one man dead and another seriously wounded.
Truly sitting at my desk one day and get a phone call, and it's the executive producer for the TV show Forensic Files.
What strikes you as odd is the sheer amount of the phone calls and the time allotment leading up to the murder.
That case was very, very convoluted.
Everybody has a cell phone, but very few people have multiple cell phones. So therefore, there's possible drug involvement in the aspect of this crime.
It's very humbling to know that case elevated to the point that it gained a national attention. You're humble about the fact that they thought enough of your work to do that, and we were able to gain enough evidence to ultimately charge that individual and got a conviction.
Phelps was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
Some people would think that a narcotics officer is not, so to speak, helping people, but frankly, when you take drugs off the street, when you arrest a violent criminal, when you arrest somebody who's an addict, you give them that opportunity to straighten their life out, to move in a positive direction. Not to mention how many lives do you save by taking that one batch of heroin off the street, and then the ripple effect of that, one death in a family or one overdose in a family can just wreak havoc throughout that whole family and cause so much grief and sorrow. I've always had my hair cut, kind of close, and so when I went undercover, I grew my hair out and grew a beard, and I remember we lived near a country store, and my mom would stop in there frequently, and this one woman saw my mother at the store and said, "Becky, I don't know what happened to your son, but man, he sure did fall off the wagon." And she never said a word. She just said, "Yeah, he'll get straight one of these days." And then it was a little hurtful sometimes, to tell you the truth, really, because I knew people thought poorly of me, and I didn't like that. But I knew that in my heart it was the greater good, and that I would get to right that ship one day. I would get to say, okay, hey, this is what I've been doing. And that can connect to my second story, which is, again, working narcotics. So we started seeing an influx of heroin. In this case, one of the individuals was a young lady. Ended up using this young lady as a confidential informant, but she was low level and she was addict. So that's somebody that we would target to help us, thus down the road trying to get them off the drug and let them have a proper life to move forward. Well, during this case, she reverted and she went back on her word. So when the case was culminated, I arrested her along with everybody else. And she was very upset, to say the least. And our last words spoken to each other at that time were both in hate. A couple of 3 years down the road, I'm walking into that same jail, and that same booking area. and I pass a young lady. She was there for a urine screen. And she comes walking back up and she says, "Excuse me." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "You don't remember me, do you?" I said, "Ma'am," I said, "You do look vaguely familiar, but I have no clue who you are." She says, "Well, I looked a lot different the last time you saw me." And so I could tell that this young lady had totally turned her life around. And of course, I had that moment of thankful that she had. That's the whole purpose. That's the whole reason that we do what we do. And she says, "Well, I wanted to thank you, and I'd like to give you a hug if you don't mind." And I said, "Well, sure, I would be fine." So she hugged me, and after we embraced, she leaned back and she says, "Just so you know, Big Al," and that's what everybody called me my whole life. She said, "Just so you know, Big Al," she said, "you saved my life."
Hey guys, how are y'all doing today?
3.5 years ago, I was eligible to retire, but I didn't. And I have no plans to do now, because every day I wake up, I look forward to making a positive impact on somebody's life. I look forward to pulling somebody out of that dark place that they're in and helping them. I think that service is what we are. Service is what defines us.
Hey, thanks for coming out. Yes, sir. No problem. Have a great day, okay?